Hi everyone, my name is Carrie and I want to thank you for joining me on my show, Life Goes On. This is sponsored to you by CSEP, the Senior Community Service Employment Program, helping those 55 and older finding meaningful training and employment opportunities. Today I have with me Amanda, who is the director of the Keesler Wellness Center. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so am I. So today, overall, we're going to be talking about mental illness. So just to give our audience a little bit of background about why you're in the position that you're in, why don't you just give me a little bit of your history of how you got interested in working with mental illness, and then how did you become one of the directors over? Oh yeah, Steve is not here to make it today. Sorry, Steve. So it's Amanda today.
I'll represent. Yeah, I've worked with, so I'm the director of Keesler Wellness Center. Stephen Loney and I co-direct the program. And Keesler Wellness Center is a branch of Northland Counseling Center, which is an outpatient mental health clinic located both in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, and then we have a branch up in International Falls as well. And I began working, actually I'll be hitting my 10-year here on the beginning of September. So I've been there for 10 years, and when I began, I was hired on a position called Adult Rehabilitative Mental Health Specialist. It's a long acronym. It's actually a terrible acronym if you think about it. We call it ARMS for short.
Yep.
And I don't think I actually knew what the acronym was up until about 2 months into my job. I didn't quite know what it stood for. But the purpose of that, and it's a very important role where you work with folks who have a mental illness diagnosis. They've identified goals that they're trying to achieve in their life, but there's barriers because of those goals. And my job as an ARMS worker was to come in and help them identify which skills that they have that could help them achieve and get around those barriers to hit their goals, or if the skills weren't as strong as that they would like, to help strengthen those skills. And that really comes down to it. Mental illness, particularly mental illness that has been ineffectively treated or untreated for quite an amount of time, a person might lose skill sets or never develop them because of those symptoms of mental illness. So the role of an ARMS worker was really to get to know people really intimately in the sense of what are their passions, what are their aspirations, and what is causing a person to not achieve them. And I was fortunate enough to, my second day on the job, to go to Keesler House, which is a clubhouse model for folks. At the time, it was more of a drop-in center where individuals that have a mental illness could come, feel safe, get a good meal, maybe participate in some activities, kind of come and go as they please. And I stopped there my second day as part of my orientation, and I never left. I walked in there and I was greeted by a gentleman who just made me feel at home. I got to know members, they're referred to as our program participants at Keesler House, and it was this group of people that just had goals and aspirations, that had stories and lives before their diagnosis, during their diagnosis, where they are now in their life, and I never left. So I became an ARMS worker, and soon after that a case manager for folks that were Keesler House members who were very actively involved with the programming at Keesler House. And throughout time, we would see gaps in services. You get to know somebody and you get to know what they want to achieve, but oftentimes there was a disconnect between what they want out of life and how to get there. We all experience that on some level.
Right.
You know, and I mean, I wanted to be a country singer when I was growing up. The disconnect that I had was I can't sing at all. I'm really good in the car by myself.
That's about what I do.
Yeah. So, but the disconnects that we're seeing from our community members that were involved with our programs were not unrealistic. They weren't impossible. Sometimes they were incredibly achievable, but without given the opportunity to, or the knowledge to know that there are resources and ways to achieve those opportunities or those goals, you never take that next step. And so I got involved more with program development about 6 years ago at Keesler House, which brought me to where I'm at in my position today as director, as one of the directors, developing a program called Certified Peer Specialist. And
Yes.
that is, we are one of the largest programs in the state of Minnesota. We work under a grant with the state of Minnesota to help implement programs like this around the state of Minnesota through trainings and otherwise. And the whole premise of the Certified Peer Specialist program is that we have adults whose credentials to work in the mental health field is the diagnosis that they have. Firsthand diagnosis of schizophrenia, borderline personality, major depression, chemical dependency. I have a degree in psychology and working on my master's in healthcare, but I don't have a mental health diagnosis. So when I'm talking to somebody that might be struggling from bipolar, I can never truly say the words, I know what you're going through, because I can't. I don't know what it's like to wake up every day with anxiety. Our team of certified peer specialists can. They can look at you in the eye and say, I know what you're going through. I've gone through this. I can help you get through this. And it really comes down to some real basic human needs of hope and caring and not judging a person based on a diagnosis. And so I guess that's my really long spiel about why I'm in where I'm at today is we developed I was one of the first arms workers out of Keesler House, and then one of the first case managers, and Steve and I just kept saying, this is working. You know, when you're working with somebody alongside them the whole way, it works so much more effectively, more progress. Certified Peer Specialist program has been wildly successful, and in the building of the Wellness Center, it's truly a dream come true.
And you just broke ground recently for that. I've been watching.
We did. August 1st, we broke ground on a $4 million project. We're taking the Keesler House and we're taking that model, the current programmings, and implementing additional programming to really, I'm going to call it a systematic change of how we deliver, view, access mental health services in Itasca County and in the surrounding communities. And the reason I say that is because if I go into, let's say I break my toe, I trip over my heels because I was being kind of klutzy, which happens often. If I break my toe, I walk into a clinic, whether it be here in Hibbing, Grand Rapids, I can get treatment right there. I can get it fixed. I'll have a treatment plan. I'll walk out and I'll feel better, hopefully, than when I walked in there.
Probably some pain still, but
maybe some pain, yeah. But access to services, access to medication, and I won't wear heels anymore. But if I walked into a clinic today and said I'm struggling with thoughts of depression, maybe even thoughts of potential suicide, the way that the system's set up right now is that I might have access to services, but I might have to wait weeks, sometimes even a month, to see a med provider or a therapist to talk about those feelings. If depending on who I see, they might have concerns that I'm at a greater risk right now, so there might be a risk of me being hospitalized, when in reality I might just be needing to talk to somebody about how I'm feeling. So that's a fear out there. And then ultimately there's just not, if I don't know who to talk to, most of our folks go to our primary care. I may not know who I go talk to that might be able to help me with how I'm feeling. And on top of that, there's so much stigma in our community, not only in our community, in our society, in our culture, about asking for help for mental illness. Yes. That I can go ask for help for, if I have diabetes, if I can go ask for help for diabetes or another physical health condition, it's viewed differently. So we're trying to create a place that is allowing folks to walk in our doors, feel comfortable as if you were walking into a clinic, get the help you needed, feel supported by not only professionals but by a family environment, and natural supports, because that's a huge part of anybody's recovery when it comes to getting farther along with management of mental illness symptoms, and be able to walk away and out our doors later on in that day with a plan and hope and knowing that they're not alone. I think the current statistics right now are 1 in 4 adults will be diagnosed. 1 in 5 families are affected. We see more and more child protection cases, people incarcerated due to behaviors or symptoms related to drug addiction or mental illness that has gone untreated. And it's this whole social trickle-down effect that's happening, and we're seeing it in our schools, we're seeing it in our communities, we're seeing it in the workforces, we're seeing it in our housing. We just came from a groundbreaking or a grand opening of a wonderful housing project in Grand Rapids called Beacon Hill, whose focus is to provide housing for those that are of disability, who have cycles of poverty and long-term homelessness. And a lot of these folks are working families, and it's the system that has been set up wrong for all these years to create barriers to opportunities to live a better life. And so we really, our goal with the Wellness Center is to be able to open our doors to families and adults and their children to be welcomed, to nurture an environment where they can get support. They don't have to be ashamed to say, I'm really struggling today. I'm really feeling low. I'm feeling a lot of anxiety. I'm questioning whether or not I can keep managing on in my life, and have that conversation.
So I have a question as you're talking. So I know right now that the Keesler House, because that's still what it kind of is more on the small side. I've been in there.
Yep.
Wonderful, amazing environment. But when the Wellness Center comes out, is it just for Itasca County residents, or can someone who is from the St. Louis or even Lake or Cook, can they see or hear of you and be like, that's where I think I need to start off first? Can they just come in, and will they have a hard time? Do they have to really move? Can they work with you on that, or?
That's a great question. One of the beauties of not only Keesler House, but will continue to be the Keesler Wellness Center, is that it's one of the only entities that you can walk into without insurance, without any involvement in any other mental health services. Maybe you don't even know if you have a diagnosis. Maybe you have struggled in the past. Maybe you're floating through the area and you're just trying to learn about what's available. Our doors are open to anybody. The goal of the project is to allow people to get in the door, and learn what resources are available. If somebody from Hibbing comes to us and is looking for resources and support, our membership program, which is really the heart of Keesler and our mission and who we are, to be a member is that commitment that you are trying to live a healthier, more independent and self-sufficient life, in the sense that you know that you want to live a better life for you and your family. Mm-hmm. That's what it means to be a member. There's no finances tied to that. And our membership program and our activities and in many of our day-to-day opportunities are open to members regardless of where you're from. We have several members that have moved out of the county and live in St. Louis County, live down in Aiken County, that come back and participate. So if we have somebody from Hibbing or in the surrounding areas that come in our door and are looking for services in their hometown, our hope is that we can connect those folks through our education and our resource base to get them to where they need to be. So if they're not able to travel to where we are each and every day to get to our services, what can we do to help open their doors to services in their hometown? So again, so that they leave with a plan, they have a connection. They have, if it's our folks making that phone call with that person to make sure that that appointment's scheduled in their hometown on Monday, much like the crisis response team does, or first call for help. Yep. They do a lot of that, and they do a fantastic job. This is working a lot. I'm sure we'll be calling first call for help a lot to verify resources.
They're amazing.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. We would be lost without them. And they've set the precedent of accessing resources in ways unseen in other places around the state sometimes. And so our hope is that if someone walks in the door, they're going to be greeted by somebody who is either a member or a certified peer specialist, have been in their shoes where it's walking in that door for the first time. And being able to facilitate that conversation of, what is it that you need? What is it that you feel that we can help you with today? Let me tell you a little bit about how I've gone through things and what some potential resources are. One thing that'll be available that might benefit a lot of folks outside of the Itasca County areas is if you're coming to learn about different resources or just be in an environment that you feel safe, it's a kid-friendly environment. We'll have an on-site playground and childcare area that if you need to have your child watched for an hour or so while you're asking those vital questions, to have a conversation with a provider without your 5-year-old running around. I have a 2 and almost 5-year-old, so I know what it's like to have a conversation about health
hard to be able
and focus
to
on that.
Focus,
Right. And so you can have somebody be able to watch your child while you're in the building, while you're having that conversation about your needs, and be okay with that, and be okay that you are making the right step for getting healthier for your family, for your 5-year-old, for your children, and not be ashamed to do so.
That leads me into one of the thoughts. You had talked about the stigma. Mm-hmm. The stigma is different than someone, like you said, with diabetes. I mean, diabetes is just, oh, you have diabetes. Okay. It's not one of those things that a kid can go to school and they're going to get really teased about or anything because there's so much of it around already. So let's talk about the stigma, especially with moving into a little bit about talking with the aging community and the stigma that they have or just their personalities, because we're looking at the aging community and, you know, they have that personality about them that they have done stuff all their life. They have lived with this all their life. There's no need to be doing it now. They can do it on their own kind of thing, but yet they really can't. They need that help. So give us some information on the stigma about it, especially in the Northland area.
Absolutely, it's very prevalent. I had a staff, one of our certified peer specialists did a great job of summing it up. He grew up in an old Finnish home, and his parents, you know, had this. He used to say that my parents said that you don't talk about it, we don't address it, and you don't think about it. You power through. You know, you need to just deal with it. And Minnesota as a whole, we kind of have that kind of culture, and then particularly in these northern woods here, it's a little bit deeper. It runs a little bit, just like the Mississippi. It runs a little bit more here, and so I guess the way to challenge that, or to question, you know, if someone's listening to this and they're trying to figure out, well, am I that, or do I really am struggling with something? Because if you've lived with this your whole life, that is your normal. That is all you know. And I guess the question I would propose to anybody is, if you feel that at any point that you just don't have control over how you feel, how you think, how you're processing, if you feel like there's that sense of, I feel like there should be more to life. That's a big one. I thought there was more to life. There should be more, or I want more, but I just don't know how to get it.
Yeah.
And that it's this kind of buried down feeling of hopelessness that often we hold back for so long, but it affects us in everything that we do and in every decision we make, or the decisions that we choose not to make a decision on, whether or not we leave our house to go for groceries. A lot of our older folks tend to isolate more. You know, when you've lived with a mental illness for so long, particularly that depression or that the symptoms of bipolar, where you're just used to hunkering down and
it's so easy to do, especially in our winters up here.
There's plenty of excuses not to leave your house.
Oh, very. I make them up myself.
Yep. There's the sideway is still kind of slippery. Well, yeah, it's slippery 9 months out of the year. Yeah, it's dark and cold. But it's signs like that where if you're feeling like I want a little bit more. I wish I did have that one person. If I could have just that one person to come check on and have that conversation with and bring a little bit of that warmth and that ray of light, we're hoping that we can do that. Even if we can't, a lot of our programs don't often start in our buildings. Sometimes it's being in the building might be the second or third or even fourth step down the road for somebody. It's meeting with somebody in their home first, or taking that step out and meeting for a cup of coffee. I know there was one gentleman, one of our certified peer specialists worked with for, I want to say about a year and a half, and it was his goal. He was part of the older population. I think he was probably in about 61, 62, and it was his goal to have dinner in town, just to have dinner. He was struggling with depression, had lost his loved one, lived alone, very easy to isolate, and she was able to make a connection, our staff, with this gentleman. And after, I want to say about a year, he was able to go out and they had dinner together. And as simple as that seems to some, that was life-changing for this gentleman to work up the courage and the support and the ability that I do want to do more. I don't want to just isolate. Mental illness is a very real thing.
Yes.
And when you're talking about the elderly population, there's still that debate, does it really exist? And I'm here to say it does exist. It does exist. And why it happens, I guess that could be up for debate. It could be genetics. It could be the way that our bodies respond to stressful situations in life. There's a lot of research out there about why someone might be more predisposed to an illness or the development of symptoms than others. But at the end of the day, it's non-discriminating. It could be somebody who has a master's level who worked 20 years as a professor who now are revealing symptoms of schizophrenia. It is a 15-year-old who has never felt right, has always felt something off, that realized that he or she was diagnosed with something. It's a 22-year-old who is feeling like life doesn't matter anymore. And they come from all different walks of life. It's just like diabetes. You see people in all different walks of life, all different nationalities and backgrounds and socioeconomic statuses that are impacted. And I'm a firm believer, and our team's a firm believer in everything that we do, is that mental illness, if not treated effectively or at all, leads to loss.
Yes.
So I'm sitting here today, a person who has a degree or two, has 10 plus years of professional experience in this field, and in a few years, if something were to happen where my brain chemical changes and I maybe start revealing symptoms of depression, or I go through a traumatic state and something happens in my life or my children's life, I need to know that I can be able to access the help and services that I need, because I know that something's off. And sometimes we don't know how long. It goes for years and years untreated. You talk about crisis services and crisis response, and a lot of the folks that access those services haven't been even accessing the available everyday services right now. We wait, and the elderly population is the same too. We wait until we feel like there's nothing left. Suicide rates in the elderly population is high and growing. I won't say as statistics, I don't know what it is for 2015 or 2016 rate at the moment, but suicide for both the elderly population as well as adolescents is on the rise, particularly in Itasca County. I'm not sure what it is for the surrounding counties here, but in the northern counties, we are high. We are some of the lowest. And when you look at the health rankings across the state of Minnesota, we're in the realms of the 70s, which means there's 87 counties out there. Our counties up here, we're in that lower 70s to getting closer to 80s. We're in the bottom of the barrel, and what they look at, those health rankings, are social factors. You know, we have elderly populations. We have more teen pregnancies. We have more families that are in social service assistance and needing more services to get out of that poverty. We have families that have access more to services such as there's more child protection cases. There are social factors that we see, and particularly the elderly population, that if we aren't working on the conversations, and this is how change started, is conversations, is being able to talk about it and be open about it. And if you know somebody that is that maybe old Finlander who believes that depression doesn't exist and that he doesn't have a drinking problem, is to talk about what is on the other side of that coin. What is missing? What is something that you're not doing today that either you used to do, that you gave up on, that you wish you could have done? What is missing? And sometimes it starts with that kind of conversation. That's what started at Keesler Halls. That's why these programs developed. That's why the Wellness Center is what it is it was conversations. Well, what's missing? We have an employment program now called Northern Opportunity Works, and it came out so simply, is that we had many members, many program participants in our other programs who had these excellent skills. They wanted to work, but they've been told that they can't work. They're on disability, they have mental illness, they can't work, but they wanted to.
Right.
That's the conversation. You want to work. Let's make that happen. Why not? We have a basketball hoop in the back of our yard at the Keesler House right now, and the concrete, and that work to do that was laid by people that came in for our program, many of them middle-aged men with different diagnoses, some chemical backgrounds, some not, but they were construction workers. They're like, I used to do that. I can lay concrete work. I can do that. Well, let's do it. You know, mental illness has that ability to take away your identity, to take away a sense of who you are, because now, particularly with illness, a mental illness, you now live that label. You now are that stigma. You now are schizophrenic. You are now a depressive person. You're a depressive personality. But you're not. You're Mike that happens to have schizophrenia. You're Dave who struggles with staying sober many days, but you're working on it. You're trying. You have kids to raise. You are a person. You have this challenge. Right. What can we do with the challenge? The best way to achieve a goal, the best way to get over a challenging situation is to get support, get the help, and have the motivation, the internal motivation to do something about it. And that's all that we're about, is being able to create an opportunity for a conversation to have hope that life can be better. Life is worth being better. You are worth more than what you might feel right now. You're worth so much more. Your life is worth so much more. These increasing suicide rates, particularly in the teens, there was one about 3 weeks ago that I was made aware of by a community member. Thankfully, it was unsuccessful, but the attempt was made. To be so hopeless at such a young age, or such hopeless after so many years of living in this world and creating such a life story, needs to end. Suicide is 100% preventable. Aside from loss of life, loss of jobs, loss of families, and your own self-worth, it's preventable.
Yes, it is. We're coming towards the end of the show. Do you have anything else that you'd like to point out while we get ready to close?
Absolutely. Check us out. We're available online. We're at www.Kiesler, K-I-E, it's kind of
I know.
SLER, wellnesscenter.org. We have our ground broke. We are looking at trying to raise, we have a funding gap of about $217,000. So if anyone out there knows or has heard the story and is able to financially contribute, we're looking for that support as well. If we can help you, contact us. If not, we're gonna see you when our doors open in June of next year.
Yep, and you guys do some pretty crazy fundraising.
We do. We've gone. I believe we've had Miss Carrie over here skydiving. We jumped out of planes to raise awareness. We had 27 jumpers that day. We have 31 signed up, so a few more were jumping on another day.
And you had a very special jumper that day that I heard. You have like 15 seconds to tell his story.
We had a gentleman who reduced smoking, reduced the amount of Pepsi he drank, lost 40-some pounds, has high anxiety, and he jumped out of a plane, and he loved every minute about it, and he's going to do it again with us next year.
And he was one of the highest raising fundraisers.
He raised more money than anyone else did, and he did it by just being persevering, talking to folks.
And passionate.
And
he was
very passionate.
I got to talk to him for like 12 seconds, and he was passionate.
He's a president. His name is Michael. He's a president of our exec council. And he's just one of many incredible souls that we get to work with each and every day.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So sorry, Steve, that you couldn't be here. We had an awesome conversation. So this has been Life Goes On, brought to you by CSEP. I am currently taking a few enrollments for the fall. So if you're interested in employment opportunities, please give me a phone call. So thank you again. It was nice having you on.